There are bridges, bridges in the sky, they are shining in the sun. They are stone and steel and wood and wire, they can change two things to one. They are languages and letters, they are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're better than a war. They are languages and letters, they are poetry and all. They are love and understanding, and they're better than a war. There are canyons, they are yawning in the night. They are rank and bitter anger, and they are all devoid of light. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and so foreboding, and they're oh so very wide. They are fear and blind suspicion, they are apathy and pride. They are dark and so foreboding, and they're oh so very wide.
Well, welcome to Bridges Programming. Thank you, Bill Staines, for allowing us to use that. That was really nice. And we are here on Sunday on the front stoop, the longest stoop in the world. This is Bridges Programming. We are sitting in the studio, but there's people who can call in, and if they're sitting on the front stoop, or they just go out of their computer and look on Google Hangouts. We are here. This is a live show. We try to do live shows. I think they're more interesting than pre-recorded shows, and we can't mess up. Whatever we say is what we.
And here's what we said.
Is what we said, and we don't have to edit it or whatever. And we have with us next. I'm Jeff Beller, and next to me is Susan Comont, and on the phone is Dennis Carius. Good morning, Dennis.
Good morning, Dennis. You having your breakfast?
I know you're having your breakfast, and we started the show. We're starting it a little earlier today because we thought we'd be on our boat doing it, but the technology wasn't cooperating.
Let us down.
The technology let us down, but that's man's mind, and it doesn't work fine. But this is Sunday morning, and the Pope has been telling people to come together and make sure you take in the refugees, and the refugees are created by economics in all parts of the world, and then they make it so difficult for people to live, so they leave their countries, and they flee to get better countries. And the thing I heard this morning was the people who were trying to get into Hungary, even though the Pope said to the churches, take in the refugees, the Hungarian people said, no, we can't, but the Pope doesn't realize the problem we have here. And the problem they have there is the government said, if you take in any refugees, we will hold you accountable for helping them and prosecute you. So that means the government is going definitely against humanity.
Didn't they say something to the churches?
Yeah, they told the churches that they'll lose if the churches help them, they will lose their non-profit status. Now, this is the way the government is controlling, or the money controls.
The arm wrestling.
Yeah, the money's controlling the churches. That's how they do it all over the world. They give them tax-exempt status as a non-profit, and then if they do something that goes against the government, they threaten them with taking away their non-profit status, which I think is amazing. So this is
that was always the weapon they could use.
Yeah, so it's always been like that, and unfortunately, that's the way it goes. But and then we've been reading Buckminster Fuller, which is he calls himself, and he wants to be called Bucky. And Susan's been reading ahead in what's the name of that?
Critical Paths.
Critical Paths,
which is, just as a note, out of print.
It's out of print, and it's one of the best. But you can
still probably get a few old copies on Amazon.
And we're gonna try to resurrect that, and you may be able to find it in a PDF online, but it's about 300 pages.
No, you won't find a PDF from 300 pages. Well, you might. Actually. I thought I did find one.
But you need to find this, and and now he's talking about in this book. He's talking about how the man's law protects not humanity, but protects the corporations so they can make money.
Actually, he calls the chapter where he talks about economics and the law and corporations, et cetera, and how things were changing through the two, what we call world wars, through the great crash, the economic crash. He calls it legally piggly. Legally piggly is the name of the chapter. So if you want to go directly to that and get, this incredible insights that he has into what was going. He lived through this too, so this is not
fiction.
This is not something he didn't witness.
He's personally encountered this before he died, and he's been talking about this probably 40 years ago, and he predicted all the things that are happening now. It wasn't like a Nostradamus thing. This is actually within our life, within our grasping lifetimes. Like my age, when I was born, there wasn't no such thing as a television set that people had, or telephones, especially telephones like we have now. They had telegraphs, but not telephones. So in my lifetime, I have seen telephones that if you hit someone over the head, you'd kill them. To the cell phones, to wireless, to cell phones where they are now, to color television, to now things that are just, technology is fantastic, but we are still killing people. You and I and everybody around us, whether we want to face up to the fact or not, we are in fact killing people.
With our economic
systems.
Yeah.
And the way we do that,
the way we function in them.
We do that legally.
Right, because the lawyers have helped this.
And the lawyers aren't bad people. They just don't understand what they're doing.
Well, they're working for the capitalists, so
they have to follow rule of law. So
they're creating the rule of law.
Well, the corporation,
for the advantaging of the corporations. Right. I mean, there is an intent here. They're not completely innocent.
That's why you see so many politicians who are lawyers.
Aren't they all?
Not all. There are a few that are not legals.
Knock the table over.
Okay, so this is, okay, so.
Should I read the summary, do you think?
Dennis, do you have any questions about what's going on now in Hungary and why we have refugees? Why do we have refugees? You just pushed the
threw the hot potato to me.
You threw the hot potato. But why would you think we have refugees? I mean, what would make you get up, Dennis, and leave your
country?
Community?
What would motivate you to leave your country?
Well, you know it's dysfunctional now. Would you get up and leave your country? You wouldn't get up and leave your town because it's too difficult. No, but it's not dysfunctional enough for you to get up and leave. You're not going to go to, like, I know people who went to Ecuador and parts of Germany and Canada because they couldn't stand the way the country was being run. They saw how clearly it was really hurting population. So they didn't want to be a part of it. So they got up and they left the country, especially before the Vietnam War.
Oh, that I would like to comment. I had a history professor who left the country, he was my high school history professor, and he left, because of the Vietnam War, went and resettled in Mexico. So, this has been going on, but those are people who have philosophical grounds on which they leave because they cannot tolerate the activities of their country philosophically.
They understand.
But for people to leave a country en masse and just hundreds of thousands of people, as is happening in Syria, this is created by real physical stresses on them, bombs falling, people being killed, with the armies that are fighting each other, and the towns are becoming what they call collateral damage. People losing their their homes, because of the destruction of these missiles and chemical warfare. I think that would drive anyone out of their country, deaths in their families that are related to the conflicts, children losing their parents. These are the things that are over the top and will create a situation where most people would consider leaving their country. It's, only a few people do it out of philosophical convictions. But once it becomes a physical reality that your life and the lives of your family members are threatened by what's going on around you, then you get a very huge response to that, obviously. And that's what's happening in Syria. And if that was happening here, people would do the same thing.
Right. In other words, if you had people shooting at you and you walked out of your house.
And what countries would welcome us?
Yeah, I mean.
Think about that. Canada would close its borders. Mexico, of course, would close theirs because we're trying to close our borders with Mexico. Where are you going to go to Cuba? I don't think we'll all fit on Cuba, or Puerto Rico.
Especially if you had no money to, all money was worthless all of a sudden.
Right.
Supposing that the yen became the prevailing dollar, and you had to buy yens to get oil. Well, that would become the prevailing dollar, and then the Chinese, of course, wouldn't sell to us because our dollar would be worthless. So therefore, we'd have a major economic problem, which is people have been predicting that for quite some time now.
In fact, today is supposed to be the end of the world.
Yeah, the end of the economic world for the U.S., according to conspiracy people we know.
I'm saying that tongue in cheek.
But anyway, I don't think that can happen right away, but I do think that oil is a major problem, and that's why we end our program with the energy song. Okay, let's go on with Buckminster Fuller, since Dennis didn't want to answer the fact that he would leave the country if we got dysfunctional. But how dysfunctional does it have to become before you leave? Right now, we know we have a dysfunctional economic system that's creating a dysfunctional government. So how dysfunctional does it have to become before you decide and I decide to get out of the country?
But then the getting out of the country is really no option.
Right, exactly.
Because we're seeing the same thing. I mean, the Syrian refugees, they're being blockaded from some countries.
And African refugees too.
Yes, exactly, from North Africa. They're being either, kept out of the countries, or some countries are now welcoming them on condition, that they have a commitment to the country to work for the rest of their lives as essentially slaves.
Right.
And depending on their training, and most of them are young, so they don't have a lot of training. So Germany's willing to train these young people, and they have their workforce is starting to die off, so they can see the potential in bringing in a new workforce. I don't know. I think that the populations have compassion, but the governments are being very economic,
how they
practical.
Pay for them. How are we going to pay for them? The numbers. Right. How do we pay for them? Well, you don't pay for people. You just make sure there's enough food, which you don't need to pay for. You work together and you grow food, and the refugees help with that, so they become part of the society, not refugees.
Right.
So that's the way you deal with it. Everybody works together, and you supply human beings with the basic needs met. Dennis, are you online yet? Because I don't see an extra person online now. I'm looking for an extra person.
He avoided that. You just dodged it.
No, you want to go to YouTube Bridges Programming. YouTube Bridges Programming. Just YOUTUBE, that's two words. Bridges, BRIDGESS.
Just one S.
One S, Bridges Programming. Programming. YouTube Bridges Programming, and you should be able to pop in there and see, and I can see how many viewers we have.
And that's archived, so
it's archived. So if you don't see it now, you can see. But okay, but you should be able to go right online right now and see us live.
Jeff is waving to you.
That's it. Mathematical battle.
No. It's called lawyers.
Lawyers.
What did Buckminster Fuller think about lawyers? I'll read the summary if you want.
Go ahead.
Should I go ahead? Bucky called them lawyer capitalists, or he shortened that to his shorthand was LAWCAP, LAWCAP.
Now, all lawyers should be listening to this program, and I'm going to have my lawyer listen to this.
Okay.
Okay, did you find it yet? And the lawyer, did you find that?
LAWCAP. Do you want to talk? Do you see Jeff waving?
No, we're not in the boat now. It's not in the boat. No.
Oh, okay, you got the wrong one.
You got the wrong one. Go back. Go back to the live one now. Lawyers.
Okay.
Bridges Programming under YouTube, Bridges Programming in today's date, which is the 13th.
Okay. These lawyers worked for and continue to work for the major corporations, making sure that the laws benefit the corporations' profit-making and resource-dominating activities, and ultimately, the corporations can then pay their shareholders bonuses, their dividends, and I miswrote that as premiums. They're supposed to be dividends. Then they can pay their shareholders their dividends, which amounted in the early 1980s, which this was interesting to me, in the early 1980s to about $100,000 per year per shareholder. And these are the 1% of the US population and the 1% of communist populations.
Now, I want to interject that. I've said for years that the very, very wealthy are the true communists of this world.
Yeah.
They, in fact, share the wealth pretty much equally. Then you have the workers who are the capitalists, and they're trying to scramble to the top. So they're the capitalists. And then you have the socialists who say, there's no point.
Let's share.
I'm just going to share what I can grab out of the system, and that's it. So you have the socialists who say, I'm not dealing in the capitalistic world. You have the capitalists who are the middle classes who are working their asses off. And then you have the very, very wealthy, the 1%ers, as Bucky and Dennis calls them, as the
communists and the capitalists.
Part. So that's the true communist of the top 1%ers who share equally, even though one person said to me yesterday that there's one person that's higher than that, but I don't believe it. I think once you get to a certain point of wealth, it doesn't matter whether you have $20 billion or $19 billion. It really doesn't matter. It's just obscene amount of control of the world. Then, were you able to find us on this YouTube, Dennis?
I'm going to finish the summary.
Okay, go to YouTube, Bridges Programming, and put today's date in. And then enter. Huh, that's interesting.
Okay, well maybe.
Well, instead of September 13th, put in live.
Yeah, maybe just live, right?
No, go to, put it in the search bar.
As live.
As live. Don't do it on the top, just do it on the search bar. Yeah. Just put on the search bar. Just put on the search bar, YouTube, Bridges Programming. Just those 4 letters. It should come up with today's show. I mean, this is sort of a test, but see if that's working. You've done this before. YouTube bridges programming.
Well,
what has come up?
The old show.
Oh, it's broadcasting now. It says. So how about just putting in YouTube bridges programming and then enter 4 words and then enter. No, I don't want that. No, I'm just trying to find this show. I know there's a lot of stuff on there, but let's just go to this show.
Well, he's figuring that out. Should I finish?
Okay, well, you try to locate that. It's just 4 words, bridges programming, and start out with YouTube, and then it should come up with today right now. I don't know why it's not. I can't do it on the while I'm on the.
Well, we know it's broadcasting.
We know it's broadcasting, but I would like to see Dennis looking. If he can't get on there, I don't know if anybody else can.
Well, that's the difficulty. Technology, it's very interesting. We're getting a very good introduction to the difficulties of technology. And we're trying to ride this wave, but boy, we're crashing onto the beach and being crushed by these waves of, and then you ask technicians to help you out, and they don't know what's going on either. You spend hours and hours.
Okay, well, I want to, before Susan goes on, good.
Oh, good.
Good.
Yes, that's it. That's
right.
it.
That's the one.
That's the one.
So that's our live show.
Okay, then I'll go on and read the rest of the summary.
I just want to let you know that this is brought to you by Bridges Programming, and this is called Sunday on the Front Stoop. And anybody can join us or email us. We need more programmers for a humanitarian station. If you're seeing us on the screen now, then you see where it says across the scrolling, Human Renewable Energy Measure, and that's why we're doing the program, because we need a measurement that says all humanity is equal.
That defines a human ethic.
A human ethic in the economic system. And that Buckminster Fuller says the same thing.
That's why we have refugees from economics and the oppression. War is part of the economics.
Now, Dennis, I don't know if
terrorism is part
you on there yet or what? Susan's going to continue on. Do you see us yet or not?
Okay. Oh, okay. So that's just a technical thing again.
Okay, you got to go to the update, or you can just do refresh. You were able to get it on that program before, right?
No kidding.
Okay, so
we're very much aware of that.
Just try to refresh your screen and see if it'll work.
Yeah. Maybe it'll work on the old terms.
Okay, good enough. And then, but Susan will continue on reading. But this is called the HRM, Human Renewable Energy Measure.org. Please,
or HREM.
The HREM, get that out to as many people as you can. It's a simple measurement like gravity. It's obvious, but no human being should ever have to beg for food or shelter, and they should have all the education they
driven
need
from their country by
for about
economics.
an hour's worth of their work. So that's it. So now I'm going to step out and let Susan do her
well, I'm just trying to. This is something that interested me this week about what I was reading in Buckminster Fuller's Critical Path. Which was his final book that he wrote before he died, was published. I don't think it was published before he died, though, but he directed people who he trusted to publish it for him. This was his final statement. about everything he'd been thinking about. But this particular chapter is about the role that lawyers have played from the First World War through the economic crash between the First and Second World War.
Now, when you say the First World War, this is before we got into war with Germany.
Right.
So if you notice, when Dennis talks about the First and Second World War, this shows where the lawyers have stepped in to change our economic system. Very
and
important.
Corporations were making money off
Right.
of both sides during these wars. They stand back like separate countries in themselves. The ones that we think are our American corporations are not our American corporations. They don't belong to the United States.
They make it sound like it.
They have as much money as a small country or a large country or, you know, an average country, and they operate like that. They are, you know, autonomous, and they have no, allegiance to any government, only to their corporation. And the lawyers have been working for these groups because they hire them and they pay the best. And the lawyers, you know, in general, you know, a lot of them, you know, do pro bono, but most of them don't. And they want to go where the money is. That's why they got into the law business to begin with. So they've been creating laws that advantage corporations so that the corporations can then pay their shareholders dividends. And I just mentioned that in the early 80s, that amounted to $1,000 per year per shareholder. I mean, this is, you know, and they're not working for this money. It's just, they can live off this easily. In the 80s in particular, my gosh, you could live very, very well with $100,000 that you're not working for at all.
And the money represents your life. It
represents the lives of people who are working.
Right.
Now that's an important
It's taking away part of your life, and that's why people object to paying taxes. They don't understand why they object to paying taxes, and they object to paying taxes.
Because they've already paid them.
Well, it's because they're using their life to pay them.
Right,
so,
again.
So you're using up your life, and all of a sudden your life is over. You wonder where did it go? I worked all my life, and I really just kept on working for whom?
Yeah.
And you worked for the big corporations, and you supplied the very top wealthy people with tremendous amount of control of your life. And that's why it's amazing. And I want them to see more. They heard one person, she wrote a book about how the Queen of England in 8 years ago went over to the Economist to find out why you guys screwed up so badly. How did you just, you're the most highly paid economist in the world.
Or the most intelligent.
The most intelligent, theoretically. And how did you let the bankers pull the wool over your eyes? Or what happened? And she said, well, they had tunnel vision in this woman, this writer. And she's totally out of her mind because it wasn't tunnel vision they had.
They were collaborating.
They were working together to make sure that the economic system keeps the way it keeps.
Right.
It has no idea of tunnel vision.
No.
There's no basic line to what the economy is. So therefore, if the economy sucks and it doesn't relate to humanity, you don't know how much you should pay in taxes or what your minimum wage should be. It has to relate to physical things. Education, food, and shelter for 1 hour of your labor a day for basic needs met. I don't know how much clearer. I'm going to say it one more time. Education, food, shelter for 1 hour a day of your life for your basic needs met. If you want more, if you want so higher, you can work more. It's that simple. I don't know how much simpler we can make this for you guys. So get away from your tunnel vision or your belief systems.
The tunnel vision is being encouraged in the rest of the population.
Right.
We think that somehow these corporations, bankers, economists are behaving in ways that are somehow advantaging the whole population of the world. This is not the case. They are making sure that things continue to operate the way they are because they are the owners of the shares and they're getting the dividends and they're not going to change anything.
So let's go back to Bucky. But
okay, let's see what he says here. And these people, these shareholders, are 1% of the U.S. population. And Bucky was saying this back then, the 1%ers. He was saying this before the Occupy movement. He was saying they're 1% of the U.S. population and 1% of the communist population. These are the people that are getting money for no labor every year, the equivalent at the very least of $100,000. That is the low end. I forgot to mention that in the summary. Okay, this is the essence of the high stakes poker game between US and Russia. This is why we create this good cop, bad cop situation, because constantly there's a competition between, and it's not just Russia now either. I mean, he was talking about Russia then because it was Cold War during his life. After World War II, there was the oncoming of the Cold War, and that hadn't ended when he died. But now that's ended. Now we have not only Russia, we have other countries, China and Saudi Arabia, and the European Union. All these groups are vying for the economic supremacy, and who can do it most craftily and get the edge. It's incredible to see this perpetuating year after year after year. And a thing to keep in mind, this is also what Buckminster Fuller is saying, that these dividends, the totals of these dividends yearly, are a major contributor to the growth rate of U.S. debt per year. Of course, you can make the case, and we do over and over, that what's money worth? But we do have a debt that can never be paid. But of course, it's being charged to the taxpayers, to the other.
To make you work hard.
The population that is not receiving $100,000 a year.
And that's what's happening in Greece.
And that's what's happening in every country.
Every country. They're making the taxpayer work their life away to pay off a debt that isn't real.
Right.
That's the problem. The debt isn't real. There's no such thing as a debt created by mankind. Humanity doesn't have a debt to human beings. They give you education, food, and shelter. Nature does that. You don't need to buy it. It's part of life.
No, we don't need to buy our lives.
You don't need to have a living. You need to, it's just man's phony laws, phony constructions of borders. We build fences up. That's not nature's borders. Those are man-made borders. They have nothing to do with actual reality. Stop building fences. Stop calling people aliens. We're all on the same planet, nature's planet, God's given planet together. It's simple. Get with it, people. Get with it. Oh, it's so frustrating because people don't want to hear this kind of stuff. They're afraid to realize that they're killing people, that we're damaging people, because we don't see it. We just don't see it. Anyway. Okay, well, I can see that we have 3 viewers right now, and you're not one of the viewers, Dennis, so I can see this a problem.
But other people have figured it out. That's wonderful.
Go ahead. Well, don't you think that we have dictators here? Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is that why did they take us off of Wikipedia? Because all we're saying is that we need a measurement that's based on humanity.
A human ethic.
A human ethic. And they took us off. And we actually proved that by a professor and colleges, and we were published, and they pulled us off after 2 weeks. So somebody said, wait a second, we don't want that kind of information out. And that's a dictatorship. And they say we have freedom of speech, but yeah, look what it cost us just to do this simple program we try to do. You know, we put out a humanitarian program. We really spend everything we possibly can in money and time to do this. And I'm getting too old to keep doing this. And you're having trouble with your technology. And it costs us a fortune just to keep this little programming going. So it's really not freedom of speech. And then if you want to strike, you can't put more than several people in front of a room, because then they say you need a permit to strike. Well, that's not striking if you have to get a legal permit for it, because then they have a law that says, well, you can't really strike. We'll put you in a striking area so nobody can see you strike. Well, that's not striking, and that's another man-made law. So they keep on doing these things that are not really, the laws are written by man or by big corporations, so you can't change the economic system. So we're saying that we need to have a program, and I'm hoping that people eventually, maybe after I'm long dead, will pick this thing up, that we need a measurement for all human beings, that all humanity has to have their education, food and shelter, and you can measure them in energy units. And then they can let the free market take effect for subjective thinking. But we need an objective point of start, a 0 point. Humanity requires education, food, and shelter. The Pope is saying this. This is Sunday. And then he's saying that the reason why we're having trouble with this is because the economic system is controlling all of it. And in Hungary today, in the media, I heard them say, the Pope doesn't realize that we are threatened by the state to make us pay more money if we go along helping the people coming across the border, the other human beings that can't fleeing from other countries because they're being oppressed by guns and weapons, physical things. So if they physically help them by giving them food or shelter, the state is going to penalize them by in turn hurting them physically. So this is the same crap. It's all about physical things, but we don't take into the economic system the physical problems. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm holding this short. We have about 25 minutes. Go ahead.
You're covering interesting stuff. And when you're talking about physical stuff, there was a change between the wars that we call 1 and 2, when they realized that there was a change from calling physical property the main thing that needed to be controlled to get power. That's still a powerful thing to own physical property, but there was an even more powerful and expandable, infinitely expandable, maybe infinitely, but definitely more than just the finite amount of land that could be owned, was the what would you call a metaphysical value that could be owned and developed, and that was the ascension of technology. Throughout these wars, the technology kept getting more and more effective, with the influx of the energy that was, as you've made the point many times, that this enhances human labor at every level. Well, the technology was getting more and more sophisticated because they were motivated by the competition and the making of armaments and trying to make the world safe for democracy, quote unquote. All this was motivating a great leap in technology and the use of metals and ores and the mining of these metals. And I'm quoting and sort of summarizing what Buckminster Fuller says in his chapter Legally Piggly, he calls it. And he's saying that once corporations realize the potential of controlling the metals and making the huge buildings where they could manufacture and shelter people so that they could work even longer hours and use machines that would enhance their labor. And all this technical advantaging was a metaphysical advantaging that was creating even more potential for making money and paying dividends. And you know, the word metaphysical, when translated from the Latin, and I'm quoting here from Buckminster Fuller, no economic accounting book lists metaphysical assets. Metaphysics is held to be insubstantial, meaning in Latin, quote, nothing on which to stand, unquote. And this is what we're asserting, that at least when we were emphasizing property, even though it was only owned by a small percentage of people, that was something physical, and other people could come to this country and try to get some of that physical land, you know, and they could have a foothold. But now,
that's what
whatever is being
earnings are.
Right.
You want to earn, you want to own property.
Right.
That's what everyone strives for. They want to own property because they think it's valuable.
But we're way in the back of the line now, trying to own property, because of course they tax you so that you really don't own it. But you know that keeps
the appearance
of ownership, but we don't own it because we can be taxed right out of it and lose it. But the point is that the people that are moving and shaking, or whatever you want to call them, are not even bothering with that anymore. They don't even care about, you know, they'll have their little island where they can have their, you know, $400 billion house or whatever, and their yachts and whatever. But they're not concerned with owning property in the way that this country began, you know, with the landholders that were granted thousands of acres. They're not concerned with that anymore. They're concerned with controlling the actual substances that create the machinery of economics. The metals, at this point, Buckminster Fuller is talking about all the metals and ores that were used to build up to the wars, to build the ships, to build the planes, to build the bombs, etc. And then, of course, atomic energy, the energy systems, petroleum energy systems. Those are the things that are the metaphysics of economics now, and only people at that level can play or own those things. And of course, they're balancing each other and competing with each other. And you know, I don't think there's any love among thieves or allegiance among thieves. But and I'm sure that you know that's a very precarious point to be standing on. But this is what a certain percentage doesn't aspire to. And in their aspirations and their ambition, they are inadvertently or you know, maybe some of them really realize the damage that they're doing. But the damage is deadly for the rest of the world population and life forms on this planet. And
that's what the Pope is saying, by the way, as well. Please read the encyclical by the Pope, whether you're Catholic or religious or non. It's a really great piece of work. And he's saying that we need to change our economic system so it benefits humanity. And this is a great Pope. And I'm not religious. I'm sorry, I can tell you that. This is Sunday.
Well, you're religious
but I have my own philosophies. Right. And it has nothing to do with the Pope. But in this case, the reason I think this Pope is great is he has a very good...
You're intersecting, right?
He has a very good soapbox, and he's using it, which most people won't do. And most people, when they do use a soapbox of that magnitude, they get killed. And I'm concerned that the Pope is, you know, expounding, but people really... The media is doing the best they can to shut him up. And I can tell you that much. Fox News is trying to shut him up, and it's a shame. And our politicians are trying to tell him that he has no business getting involved with politics. We have a huge problem here. But I respect this guy, and I think he's doing a great job. And we need to support the concept of an economic system that's functioning for all humanity, not just for the few. And that's what Dennis objects to too, Dennis. You object to that it's a dysfunctional government, but it's not dysfunctional when you're talking about just the top very wealthy. It's very dysfunctional for the rest of the population.
And they've upped the ante with this poker game. You know, they've upped it. We discussed earlier in earlier programs, and you know, led by Buckminster Fuller's descriptions in Critical Path, where he described how there was such an advantage to the individuals who were able to build the ships that first circumnavigated and were able to bring back goods from far away and bring them to Europe to sell. That this was a huge advantage, and they had very, very specialized knowledge in order to do the navigating and to build and to make the maps, and they were very secretive about it because they knew the value of this knowledge. This was important, and they had a certain language that they used. The Phoenicians invented phonetics in order to be able to trade,
right.
And they were the first really excellent navigators and traders, etc. Well, this ante was upped when the wars that we've gone through so far that we call world wars. It was like up to a metaphysical level where the language that most people don't understand is the language of the higher math, and the higher math that's understood by the scientific, the small scientific community that's inventive. And this doesn't mean that the rest of the population cannot understand it, but they are being kept from understanding it because they know that it is here at these levels with the science and the invention and the use of that language of math that they're able to.
I want to bring this out so it's simplified for people to see.
I'm not really.
And the way I'm saying it is, we know we live 80 years of age. That we can understand. Some of us will die younger with accidents or with sickness, and some of us will live a lot longer. But mostly, on the average, we have 80 years of age with reasonably good food and water and shelter. We will survive 80 years of age. We can all agree that that's a good average number. It's not exact or perfect, but it's close enough. Now, we all agree that we need education to know what shelter and food to have. And we all know that we can measure in calories or in energy units the amount of water and food we have, and we can measure in energy units the amount of shelter we have. Now, maybe whatever the numbers are in energy units, we can measure them with today's technology. Now, that means if we had a smart mathematician right now and heard what we just said, he could figure out an axiom, which is what they call it in math, for the lifespan of a human being.
For the human ethic.
And becomes lifespan. It doesn't have to be ethics because that's subjective. Let me finish.
Yes, go ahead.
And we need to have a measurement for the food and a measurement for the water, which we have, and the measurement for shelter. Now, if you take those measurements in energy units plus the age, you can come up with an axiom number that can be put into a computer that can be correlated to what a currency should be to get paid and what you need to live worldwide. That is that simple. Now, the part that I think most people can understand is you only live 80 years of age. You need a certain amount of food. Without the food, you'll die. And you're not going to, over a year's time, you'll about average the same amount of food everybody does and the same amount of water. And you'll need some kind of shelter. That's basic needs to stay alive. Those are not wants, those are needs. You may want a bigger home, which takes more energy, but you can work harder for that. And you have more time to work harder for that. Right now, the harder you work, you can't get ahead because there's no axiom, there's no math number. And that's what's being held back from us. Mm-hmm. So we need to get, and I've never seen an axiom on this, and I think it can be done. I'm sorry to
It
tell.
can be done because we understand numbers that well.
Right.
And we understand systematizing that well, and it can be done.
No, that's
And
what we are.
If you want to understand, let me just quote something directly from Buckminster Fuller's book here, because, just to reiterate what the obstacles have been deliberately put in the way of most of the people in the world, whatever you want to call it, 99 or whatever. What the Wall Street lawyers, grand strategists realized, and this is directly after World War II, what they realized, these lawyers, was something momentous, and that in the new 99.9% invisible reality of alloys, chemistry, electronics, atomics, scientific and technical know-how was everything. Physical land and buildings were of no further interest to capitalism. Metaphysical know-how was the magic wand of the second half of the 20th century world power structures. Physical properties were subject to deterioration, taxable, and cumbersome. Advised to do so by their lawyers, capitalism and private enterprise set about after World War II to monopolize all strategic technological know-how, i.e. all metaphysical properties, and to dump all physical properties. They called for an economic program by which people would be forced to buy the apartments and the houses and to get all physical properties off capitalism's hands. So that's what's happened. They've dumped the properties and they're going to just, the people that own them now are being taxed so much that, eventually they'll give them up.
And then someone else will buy, and they'll keep this psychological thing that you got to own something. And you don't really own it because you're being taxed on it. Right. That's why people object to the taxes, even though we know we need roads and schools, but they don't have to be taxed. They can just be built. And then without being taxed, we just build them. People get together and they build the roads and the food and shelters there because nature or God has given you the energy to build these things with. You don't need money. You need to just physically build solar panels. And then when you build them, people get their basic needs met. You get rid of the money concept. You just use the money to build the specific things, and then the money is destroyed. So no one makes money on money. That's the problem. Making money on money gives you nothing in physical. It's all metaphysical. And that's what Bucky is saying. We need to we object to that. And it's unbelievable.
Yeah, the only free enterprise is occurring at those top levels. Quote, the post-Eisenhower era becomes most suitably identified as that of lawyer capitalism or of no-risk, sure thing, free enterprise. It's all become own the technology, own the scientists who are creating this technology, own the language that is spoken at that level, and that is the metaphysics of economics from to this point, to today, from Eisenhower to today. And throughout that whole period, he has a graph in here. It shows how the cost of living has gone up always exponentially and is continuing to go up. Because the people are using their lives to pay for this. It's metaphysical at their level, but it's physical at our level.
Right. We are working our life away while they're collecting money because of money that makes money on nothing that gives nothing to us back.
Nothing.
And that is why you call this, Dennis, a dysfunctional government, because the economic system is creating a dysfunctional economic system for us. So therefore, it looks like we have a dysfunctional government, and we do for most human beings. But for the few human beings that have created this form of, they're very functional. And that's the part why we need to get people to understand that we need a measurement in our vocabulary. And that's what Bucky's saying, that stops this kind of behavior and gives all humanity the physical needs in their lifespan for 1 hour or 2 hours a day, depending upon how much you're willing to work for what your wants are, not your needs. All needs will be met by nature, by, if you want to be religious, by God, and that's what the Pope is saying. Stop poisoning our atmosphere. Stop killing other human beings. We are killing human beings. I was in the library yesterday. I met this very intellectual guy, and he got very nervous when I said to him, we're killing other human beings. And he started to justify 9/11. He started to justify Muslims. He started to justify. I said, no, who created this problem? Whether 9/11 was real or not is irrelevant. But who created the fact that when we drop a drone over someone to get their natural resources, not for freedom, that's just a negative. It's a word that we just like to use, throw out a lot. We need natural resources to keep the economy going. So we send drones and weaponry and bombs over people, and it kills them. And then when their kids are killed, or their parents are killed, or they're maimed for life, they hate us because we've done this, and that's created the problem. And then we have to go to war to stop the Muslims, to stop the terrorists. Well, the true terrorists are ourselves. We are doing this through our economic system, and most people refuse to look in the mirror and see the problem. Anyway, that's where we're going with this. We got 2 minutes. So
I'll lead into our end song with one last
Go
quote
ahead.
From Buckminster Fuller, if you don't. Quote, "The big oil companies knew long ago that humanity would ultimately run out of an adequate supply of petroleum and other fossil fuels, though coal may last 1,000 years. That's why, by means we have reviewed, the oil companies acquired control of the know-how on atomic energy, as well as all the atomic plants and equipment paid for originally by the US government," and that means taxpayers.
You and I, right. We work for it.
"The power structure's only interest is in selling energy, and only energy that they can run through a meter. They're not in the least interested in anyone getting wind power except themselves. Very rich men love having their sailing yachts wind-driven to Europe or the South Seas, but this is not for the people. People's power must be piped or wired to them only through meters," unquote.
And that's exactly why they don't like solar panels. And that's exactly why they don't like, other types of like water power. But when they produce the water power or they produce the solar panels, they can sell them to us for a price. And we pay a lot of money for that. And they're still the 1%ers.
And we only get the slight advantage in our bill.
And then you work 20 years and you own them, is what happens. And,
right.
Or solarized groups, they don't follow.
So that's
this.
a quarter of your life, and actually half of your working life.
Half of your working life. So that's why we're doing this. And
so, yeah, you can.
I really was hoping that we can get more into this. We need to get this program out as much as possible. Well, something like it. You don't have to look at our program, but if you understood this program, make your own programming up and get it out there about that we need to get a measurement out there that helps humanity. Anyway, I'm going to have to go off, and I'm going to give you a little song called the Energy Song, and we're going to play that right about now. And I'm going to have to bring that up like that, and we'll see you guys. Thank you very much for listening. And Dennis will talk to you later.
Bye, Dennis. Thank you, Dennis.
Your neighbor's out of work because they closed the factory. You try to stretch your paycheck, but it's never quite enough for energy.
Thank you all for listening. Tune in again next Wednesday morning from 9 to 10. And we're going to try to continue with this, and that's world call in. But yeah, an hour early, 9 to 10. And thank you, Alien Folk Life. This is a song they wrote for us called the Energy Song.
30 years ago.
30 years ago, 25, 30 years ago.
Right. Still appropriate.
And when it's gone, it won't come back, and we'll be out of LAWCAP. Energy, energy. It all comes down to energy.
You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy. We can get our energy from corn and grass and trees. Even trash converts to biofuels. Break loose from the stranglehold of oil companies. Renewables can fuel the world. We're here to spread the news. Oh, energy, energy. It all comes down to energy. You wonder where the money's gone. Well, here's some fuel for thought. It all comes down to energy.